What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another live stream on Jackman Radio. I am your host, Mike Jackman. Great to see everybody here today. Hope everyone's enjoying a glorious August 11th, 2022 summer day. I know here in New Hampshire, finally the heat wave broke after a really intense 2 weeks. And, for us big guys, it's definitely... you definitely sweat. You do sweat a lot, unlike, Prince Andrew. You do sweat. So wanted to kick things off with a little tribute to Olivia Newton-John, absolute Aussie, British queen, pop singer, superstar extraordinaire, who sadly passed away a couple days ago from cancer. I understand she was battling, I think, breast cancer, on and off for probably the better part of 15 or 20 years. So she had a courageous battle with cancer and sadly passed away. I think she was 73 or 74. So, in my opinion, that's too damn young for someone who's otherwise healthy. But she had an amazing career, and certainly Grease was the musical and the film that she's really well known for. And it reminded me of a student film that I was in back in college that my friend Justin made called The Connoisseur. And we had a scene that we shot in a bar in Massachusetts. We got the run of the bar, and it had a stage. And one of the songs that we used in the film was from the Grease soundtrack. I think there was actually a couple. So it was like really outrageous. Like you had this bar full of people, and the lead character was on a blind date with someone named Figuarella, and Figuarella was the feature performer at the Tackle Box Lounge, and you can kind of surmise where it went from there. Figuarella ended up being a drag queen, and hilarity ensued. But really funny movie, The Connoisseur. We shot that and released that back in like 2006 or 7, so definitely not a film you could probably make nowadays, but a great student film. And another classic from Olivia Newton-John was, Xanadu. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but, it was panned as not really a great film. But I think time has been very kind to it since it came out in 1980. And the soundtrack's just phenomenal. I mean, you got banger after banger on there. You got Olivia Newton-John, singing the song Magic, which was a huge hit for her. And, of course, the title track, Xanadu, her and Electric Light Orchestra teaming up for that track and other parts of the soundtrack. And that was a huge hit, and the soundtrack was very popular and did well. And I just remember growing up listening to that song. My dad actually turned me onto it when I was a kid, so it always kind of stuck with me. So Olivia Newton-John, we salute you. And I remember a few years back, her boyfriend at the time disappeared. She was dating he was like a gripper or some kind of like film crew type dude. And he was on a boat, and the boat disappeared. And there were allegations that he faked his death at sea and was living on a boat somewhere, down in Mexico. And they ultimately were unsubstantiated. And I think he was declared dead or legally missing after a certain point. But I always remember that being an interesting story, that she had a long time, on again, off again boyfriend that like disappeared, and there was investigations into whether or not he owed people a lot of money that he didn't want to pay back, and something like that. So I always thought that was interesting. IB Denmark, great to see you. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you're staying cool wherever you are on beautiful God's green earth. Go Jackman Radio. Thank you. General Meow Meow, great to see you. Xanadu was lit. It really was. I mean, you had a 70-year-old Gene Kelly on roller skates. You had the guy from the Warriors, kind of done up. I mean, he went from the Warriors to kind of looking. They put him in a lot of makeup for Xanadu. I mean, they put everybody in a lot of makeup, especially Olivia Newton-John. But I mean, even the male characters in Xanadu were kind of shimmering. They had some sparkle. But that last scene where they're all dancing and going around in that old it was actually a famous club out in California that burned down a few years after they filmed that movie. They So they filmed exteriors for Xanadu at that place, like the outside of the actual like roller rink. And then, for certain music videos and other films, they use the interior. And actually, I don't know if it's Tomorrowland or where it is at Disney, but either Disney World or Disneyland, whichever, actually was inspired by the architecture of that building that you see in Xanadu. It was a very famous building that ultimately burned down. And so, I mean, it's iconic. I mean, you can't beat it. It was Gene Kelly's last film. I think it inspired a lot of other, maybe more lower budget roller rink type movies, which I think it originally was supposed to be that. But then they, the people came in and wrote it and expanded on it and made it something else. Rest in peace, Olivia Newton-John. Yes. I got to go back and watch Grease. I mean, her turn as Sandy. I remember hearing that the pants that she was in, they actually had to sew those onto her because they were so tight. They had to, whoever was doing wardrobe had to actually sew them onto her. I don't know. That's an urban legend. Maybe it's true. I bet it's true. Let's see. From Eric. Yep, we get asked how to support Jackman Radio. So I think we've alluded to this, but we are going into a studio space really in a couple weeks in September. So we need all the support we can get to, cover that cost and, other costs and getting furniture and doing the build out. But we're really excited. We just hit 30 patrons on our Patreon, and, it helps us buy equipment. It helps us, keep up with trying to book guests and travel and all this. So if you do want to support us and you like what we do in our interviews, patreon.com/Jackman Radio is a great way to support us. And we're also on Venmo at Senator Jackman 86. If you want to support us that way, it goes directly to us. And we are also on Substack. I've been writing a lot more articles for Substack because I've always enjoyed writing, and I wrote a lot more in college. Like I wrote a little bit for my college's newspaper, and did some like news stories and political stuff and current events. So on our Substack, which is right here, ericjackman.substack.com, you'll see, articles on concert reviews, movie reviews, pop culture stuff, but really a lot of political stuff. I think I've got a recent article that I put up, a review. I went and saw Brian Wilson and Al Jardine from the Beach Boys just about a month ago. So I did a review of that. And then I recently put up an article about the 78,000 IRS agents that they're hiring. 78,000. So, inflation's great. Gas is great. Bills and rent and groceries, that's all great. I think we need another 78,000. Let's do 100,000. Let's call it 100,000. So I wrote about the IRS doing that, as well as signature reduction, which I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but Newsweek did a hell of an expose on signature reduction about a year ago. I think it was last May 2021. And that basically talks about, I think that's like 30 or 40,000 agents that they've built up over the last decade that support people's fake identities and undercover work. And, it's stuff that's going on in other countries, so we can see, spy on people all over the world, Asia, Africa, obviously Middle Eastern countries, but they do a lot here, stateside, domestically in America. So I thought that was very interesting. Eric just put the 87,000 new IRS. Okay. Was I a little low? The Mormon, aka the Mormon. Hey, great to see you, gents. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Great to see you here. Thumbs up, IB Denmark. Absolutely. General Meow Meow says, militarize the DC police, now the IRS. Next, they'll militarize the YMCA. Yeah, they'll be like, YMCA, They'll come at you. You can get a good meal. You can get arrested and fingerprinted, Yeah, what is it going to be next? Exactly. What are they going to militarize next? Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to talk about was the new Predator movie, Prey. Man, I was expecting it to be pretty good. Like I went into it kind of optimistic, but it definitely shattered my expectations. And in my opinion, it's the best sequel since Predator 2 with Danny Glover, which came out in 1990. That takes place in kind of a not too distant, dystopic LA. And speaking of summer heat, you watch Predator 2, man, you can just feel the heat emanating off the screen. Like everybody's sweating, everybody's agitated. It's just, since the first Predator, it's arguably the best. But Prey, which just came out last week on Hulu, the streaming service, I thought was fantastic. I mean, they totally did a different approach. They took it back to, I don't know, I don't know what year it was, 1720, somewhere around there. And they followed a Comanche tribe, and the character of Naru, she's a young member of the tribe who's trying to prove herself, and she doesn't just want to, do the traditional roles that women do in the tribe. And of course, we're all wondering, is it going to be full woke? I don't think it was. I think it was a great balance of talking about the important issues with respect, to men and women and what expectations are and what traditional roles are. But you cared about the characters. I mean, it was a lean movie. It was probably like an hour 40, maybe hour 40, just over 90 minutes, 100 minutes, whatever that is. And they really went right into the action. And, you cared about the characters, and it's just really cool seeing the lo-fi weaponry of the lead character in the Comanche tribe and what they have at their disposal, and how they trap food and basically live out on the frontier and take care of everything with the tools that they have. And then you got the Predator. You got the Predator coming down in his spaceship, being dropped off, being ready for the first hunt. And not giving too much away, but I mean, the main character, she really, goes through each scene trying to figure out and discover what this thing is that's hunting her and hunting her tribe and learning about it. So, it was really cool, really well done. One of the only complaints I probably have about it is some of the CGI was a little cheesy. Like some of the animals that they had, like a CGI bear. That was a little dodgy. But the Predator effects, I thought were great. There was some new takes on some of the old classics in the Predator's arsenal. There were some callbacks. There were some callback lines, which were really cool for fans of the series, especially the first one. And there was a huge connection from this one to Predator 2, which I won't give away. But if you're a fan of the series and you like Predator 2 as much as I do, you'll see what I'm talking about. So that was really cool. And I definitely think it's open for sequels. They left it pretty open-ended enough where they could probably go keep on this direction. But yeah, I really like what they did with it. Other than the second one, Predator 2, I enjoyed Predators from 2010 with Adrian Brody and Lawrence Fishburne. That takes place on like one of the Predators, I think, on their planet. So they're out in it's like a jungle, kind of a wooded planet. But the most recent one, The Predator from 2018, I didn't like that at all. I didn't think that was that good. Comment here from General Meow Meow. I feel like they shot themselves in the foot in claiming it's the first hunt. There are so many good timelines to make a story about. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could call it, I guess you could call it a prequel because it does take place before everything. But yeah, I mean, you could go, even if it takes place in that century, you could still tell many stories after that, or you could go more sci-fi and take it up into space. I don't know though. I feel like in a lot of like sci-fi and horror movies, they jump the shark when they go to space, right? You had what was it? Critters 4 takes place in space. Hellraiser 4 Bloodline is in space, which I liked. I actually enjoyed Bloodline. Came out in '96, and it was the last theatrical release for the Hellraiser series. And I think it's an underrated, kind of unfairly maligned entry into the series. I think Leprechaun 4 is in space too. I'd have to check, but certainly Jason X, Jason 10 goes to space. Not a great movie. One of the coolest kills though, where he dunked the victim's face into the I don't know what it was, nitrogen or whatever, froze it and then smashed it. I mean, that was a really cool kill if you get a chance to see that. And David Cronenberg makes an appearance in that movie, which was pretty cool as well. General Meow Meow says, I've heard it's a good movie. Predator and Predator 2 are still my favorites. Absolutely. Yeah, I would say the original Predator, you're not ever going to beat that. Prey definitely captured a lot of that spirit, though. And every sequel they've made, since the first one, they've always tried to bring Arnold back, and it's never worked out because he didn't like the story, or I guess with the 2018 one Predators, they didn't want to give him a big role. They wanted them to have some glorified cameo as Dutch. In my opinion, if you're going to bring Arnold back, man, you got to do it right, and you got to do it big. You got to bring me back there. You got to have me chewing on the cigars. You got to have me buffing the Predator's head and in the woods. You got to bring him back fully. So at this point, I don't know if that's going to happen. Arnold just turned 75, I think. So I certainly think he still has some films in the hopper, but being able to do a full 2-hour Predator movie, I'm not so sure. Hey, he made all those Terminator sequels, and most of those were pretty goddamn awful. Genesis was not really that good. And then the one that they released, what was it, in 2019, Dark Fate? Not a huge fan of that one. I don't know. It was okay. Again, Terminator and then Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I think the argument could be made that Terminator 2 Judgment Day was even better than the original in a lot of respects. They certainly upped the action and upped the effects and the budget, and that was the one that I grew up on. I think that came out in like 1991, so I was like 5 or 6 when that came out. I remember begging my parents to see it, and I think when my mom went away for a weekend, my dad let me watch it. So that one in Total Recall. We love Arnold, even though, the Nazi connection, the Nazis at his wedding, his dad did the Nazi thing, it's just delicious. He's a good guy. Tommy Craney, how you doing, Tommy? Olivia Newton-John was my first real crush. Yeah, I mean, I always had a crush on her too. I mean, she was, apart from being incredibly talented and an amazing singer and personality, and by all accounts a great person, she was just devastatingly beautiful. I mean, yeah, she was it's ridiculous how hot she was, if I'm being honest. She was an early crush too, and Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia, especially in Return of the Jedi. Definitely like that one. IB Denmark. Yes. General Meow Meow says, I just want Predators of the Caribbean, then I can die. Imagine that if you have Johnny Depp fighting the Predator. Well, he already did that. It was the Amber Heard trial. But, yeah, you have Arnold. You got Captain Jack Sparrow. You're kind of wondering, is that where the Predator got the dreads from Captain Jack Sparrow? It was Keith Richards part of the original. I mean, there's so many directions you could go in with that. I don't remember if Cameron directed Terminator, but Terminator 2 was his usual formula of ramping everything up like he did for Aliens. James Cameron did direct Terminator 2, and the more recent one, Dark Fate, he didn't direct it, but he produced it. So him, Schwarzenegger, and Linda Hamilton officially came back for the more recent one, as did Edward Furlong, but it just wasn't that great. It was better probably than Part 3, Rise of the Machines, in my opinion, but it didn't, I don't know, the first two. As far as Terminator, man, 1 and 2, and then I thought it was interesting what they did with Salvation, but Arnold's not really, I think he was governor when they made that one, so he's not really in that, although they do kind of, they do a face-off scenario where they take his face, like CGI, and put it on like a bodybuilder, and they had that, bodybuilder type stunt person, and have that, the naked version of that, fight Christian Bale, which was, I guess that was kind of interesting. But yeah, Alien and Aliens, yeah, I mean, again, some people think Aliens was better than the original. I think those were both done by Ridley Scott. I'm pretty sure he directed both of those. Or no, James Cameron may have done Aliens. I'll have to double check. But I think Ridley Scott was definitely involved in the second one. But you really see Ripley kind of come into her own and be the ultimate badass. And Bill Paxton, I mean, that had a stacked cast too. They got that actress who was John Connor's stepmom from Terminator 2 is in Aliens, Lance Henriksen. And I think Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton are the only two actors to be killed by an alien, a predator, and a Terminator. I'm pretty sure. Because Lance Henriksen was in the first Terminator, and he's killed by the Terminator in the police station. And Bill Paxton played it like a punk in the first Terminator, and he's killed by the Terminator. And then they were both in Aliens. Lance Henriksen was like an android, so I guess he comes back. But I mean, technically, he got killed by the alien, and Bill Paxton was killed in Aliens. And then Alien versus Predator, Lance Henriksen is in that, and he's killed by the Predator. And then, of course, Bill Paxton was killed by the Predator in the subway in Predator 2. So I'm pretty sure that's right. You guys can fact check me on that. Maybe they'll put it up as medical disinfo. He was an android. He didn't get killed. Scott did Alien. Cameron did Aliens. Yep, I thought so. General Meow Meow says, the studio had to reel Scott in because he wanted Alien to end with Ripley getting her head ripped off and then speak into the microphone to corporate. Yeah, that would have been pretty interesting. And then Michael Biehn, of course, was in Aliens, and he was in the original Terminator. He played, I think he was Kyle Reese in the first Terminator. A very underrated actor. I actually met him in Providence, Rhode Island a few years ago at a convention. Really friendly guy. Chatted with me quite a bit, and I think I got a signed photo of him from the original Terminator. I'd have to dig that up. But, yeah, that would have been interesting. I know they were talking about having Sigourney Weaver come back recently for an Alien sequel, I think in the Prometheus timeline or universe, because it's in the same universe, the whole Prometheus and the recent Alien sequels, but they haven't been able to work it out, and they were going to bring her back as well as Newt from Aliens, the little girl, and then I think Michael Bihn's character of Hicks survived, and they were going to bring him back. So that would have been cool to see that. Hey, they brought Sigourney back for the new Ghostbusters for a little post-credit action, and that's teasing the next one that they're actually making right now that's going to come out at the end of 2023. So we'll see. I like the new Ghostbusters for what it was. I thought it was decent. I didn't hate it. Titus. Comment from Titus. How you doing, Titus? Good to see you. Ridley Scott did Alien. Yeah. And his brother Tony Scott did the original Top Gun, I think. And sadly committed suicide a few years back. All right, General Meow Meow says, I'm going to nerd out again. The original script of Alien was called Star Beast. It was made into a graphic novel by Dark Horse, and it's pretty good. Thanks for that tidbit of information. I did not know that. So, but Prey has the full Jackman Radio endorsement, and if you got Hulu, I highly recommend watching it. So many sequels nowadays just are not that great, and especially, longtime fans have nitpicked them, and certainly I'm a huge fan of the Scream series, and I do want to do, there's a lot of great Scream YouTube content creators that I follow and watch, and would like to do a Scream-centric podcast, but the recent news on that is they're making Scream 6, and Neve Campbell is not coming back because basically Spyglass production company didn't want to pay her what she was asking for. And I know actors make a ridiculous amount of money, but other than the Ghostface, character, she's the icon and heart and soul of the whole Scream series. She played Sidney Prescott in all 5 of them. And I mean, all the hundreds of millions of dollars that series has made, I think Neve Campbell is a major part of that, if not the biggest part of that. Obviously, Wes Craven, who directed the original and the sequels up until the 4th installment, just before he died. Wes Craven was a huge part of that. But I think if you don't have, if you don't have Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, it's not as good. So she's not coming back for the 6th one, but they got Courtney Cox, and I'll go see it. I'm a big movie guy, big horror movie guy, so they're going to get $10 out of me. General Meow Meow says, lots of sequels, prequels, requels don't pay much, if any respect to the originals. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I'd have to agree with that sentiment. And today, I think Tobin Bell, who played Jigsaw in the Saw movies, just turned 80. And I love that, Tobin Bell was a character actor for many years through the late 80s and through the into the 90s, and he had a small part in Goodfellas. I think he was in Pelican Brief or one of those other legal thrillers from the 90s. And no, it wasn't really a household name until he did Saw in 2004 as Jigsaw. And, I remember seeing that in the theaters as a senior in high school, and just at the end of it, just like being totally blown away by the twist. But, that new one that Chris Rock did was, it's not good. I think that's why Will Smith slapped him, honestly. He's like, keep Jigsaw's name out your goddamn mouth. I think that's probably why he hit him. And if that's the case, it was justified. But other news going on, another sequel that happened was the Revenge of the Sith, a.k.a. the FBI at Mar-a-Lago. And a lot of you wanted my take on the so-called raid at Mar-a-Lago. I feel like, Trump's legal team or his people had to have known that something like that was coming, because the lawyers have been talking, obviously, with the prosecution and the government for months about documents and classified material. But I think more than anything, it's just a political thing. It's, the whole thing about what's classified or not classified. Well, as president, Trump got to decide ultimately what was classified and not classified. And one thing I was hoping he was going to do was release all the JFK files, which he released some of them in 2017 when the 25th anniversary of the law from the JFK Act in 92 expired. Legally, they all should have been released, but that didn't happen. And Biden has released some, and now they're talking about releasing more of those files. But I think they're just going to keep punting that. And, then, of course, Trump in New York City had to go and sit for legal proceedings, and he invoked the 5th. Okay, I invoked the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 20th, and the 40th. I'll invoke them all if I have to. But, you don't want to incriminate yourself. Even, let's say, what you're being charged with, you're innocent of, but you say something, or you slip up, or you say something you think is true, but it's not true, and then it can come back and legally bite you in the ass. So, I can understand, why the king pled the 5th. He's been involved in, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 different lawsuits and cases through the years, and he normally likes sparring, with the lawyers. So that is an interesting angle and aspect of it. But they went into his safe. So what was in the safe? Did Merrick Garland? Did he know what's in the safe? Did Ray know what was in the safe? And it's interesting. The FBI director who signed off on it was appointed by the king back, I think, in 2017. And the lawyer, well, he used to be a lawyer, but he's a judge, Bruce Reinhardt. I thought this was interesting. So this is Newsweek reporting. The judge who signed off on an FBI search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence previously represented some employees of Jeffrey Epstein and has made donations to candidates from both political parties. So I think he gave, whatever the max was, thousands of dollars to Barack Obama and to Jeb, ! So this Reinhardt guy, was part of the sweetheart deal back in 2008 in Florida with Epstein, later becomes a judge, and then is doing this thing to, kind of poke the king. So it really feels like a lot of reindeer games. It feels like the power structure, in my opinion, a lot of it is competing mafias. Okay. You got these, you can break it down like this. You got these different mafias, and sometimes for their ends, they work together and they align them. So it's like Game of Thrones. So sometimes the houses align when it meets their ends, and they collaborate to, screw with someone else. And then sometimes they're at war and they battle each other. And, right now what's going on with this, they're doing what they can to go after Trump right now because he's out of office. And I think they're going to try and do everything they can to make sure that he doesn't run again. They don't want him to run again. They got all the January 6th stuff going on. So, again, I think it's political, and some people are suggesting that there is actually something there. They wouldn't have done this raid unless they really felt like there was hot evidence that was on the premises. So I don't know. It's hard to say 100% what exactly is going on. But again, still, we have Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, in a nice prison, moved, I think, to Connecticut. And we don't have the client list, but we're talking about this. So, a couple other chats here. General Meow Meow. What creeped me out about Saw was that my dad liked it, and we never watched a horror movie in the house as a kid. Yeah, Saw is fun for the whole family, for sure. General Meow Meow says, they get up in arms about what's possibly in a safe, but they knew what was on the server in Hillary's bathroom closet. Well, exactly. I mean, she had 30,000 emails, Meow Meow. 33,000 emails that she had to submit under the investigation. And then she acid washed. She used acid wash on the server. Rudy tells me acid wash is a very expensive procedure. You get a little Windex, you get a little bit of Tang, you mix it in there with some Diet Coke, and you acid wash. So, and that's the thing too. Like the bigger point I wanted to make about the raid and the FBI is that there's a lot of people celebrating it because they hate Trump so much. They have, really severe TDS, and anything that they can, any leg up on Trump they can get, they think it's good. And then you have people who are, of course, pro-Trump, who think it's just a political witch hunt, and think that what happened to Hillary was, although actually nothing happened to Hillary. Remember when they said that she, broke the law, but she didn't intend to break the law. She didn't knowingly do it. So she got off. I mean, it didn't help. It didn't help her campaign. The final days of the 2016 campaign, when Comey came out, announcing about that. But I remember the day that happened. Eric was actually at a Trump rally dressed as Trump in New Hampshire. We just got off the wire that they're reopening the investigation into Crooked's emails. So I think it's left, it's left, right. It's blue, red battling each other. But the larger picture is the power of an institution like the FBI and how much power these alphabet agencies have. Like anyone cheering the FBI raiding a former president, I don't cheer that. I mean, the FBI can raid anybody. They can plant evidence. They can make anybody look guilty. They can, tip off the media to something. I mean, so it's not, overall, I don't think it's something that like other American citizens should really be like having a fiesta over. The FBI is the same institution that had a very repressed cross-dressing psychopath known as J. Edgar Hoover fucking with all kinds of people, with regular Americans. And, no offense to cross-dressing people. He gives cross-dressing people a bad name, in my opinion. Buffalo Bill is a better representation of that. But, the FBI also told Martin Luther King to commit suicide. That was either J. Edgar himself coming from his office or from Clyde Tolson. And that was in the 60s. So, I mean, these are major, major goals. I mean, they set up these operations. They get a lot of useful idiots like the Whitmer plot. Look into the Gretchen Whitmer thing, the kidnapping plot. Look into 1996 when Maria Farmer went to the FBI and told them what was going on with Epstein. What do? So everyone cheerleading the FBI. Just look at a couple of those examples. I mean, I could go on. You could go on, right? That's kind of my bigger point about that. John B. Sloop John B. Good to see you, man. Is it possible the FBI is looking for Ghislaine Maxwell's Black Book? Just hit me. This hasn't been found. I think there's a couple of Black Books that had addresses and contacts and phone numbers. And Nick Bryant, actually, when he was investigating the Epstein case down in Florida, was able to procure one of the Black Books. And the only publication that would release it was like Gawker. And I think this was back in, 2013 or 2014. And, being in the Black Book doesn't mean that you're guilty or that you were participating or involved in what they were doing with the trafficking. As Maria Farmer explained to us, Epstein and Ghislaine tried to go after RFK Jr. and get, him involved. I mean, they wanted to go after anybody who was famous or had connections or power or money or influence. There's a photo of Ghislaine Maxwell with Kyle MacLachlan, the actor. There's a photo of her with Mick Jagger, Elon Musk. So, being in a photo with those people or being in the Black Book doesn't necessarily mean that you're part of it. But there were a lot of names that were also circled in the Nick Bryant Black Book that was released. And, names like Bill Richardson, Bill Clinton. He had a lot of contacts for Trump. So, certainly... who was it? Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, who was coming and going from, the apartment that housed all the models that was run by Epstein's brother in New York. So, there's a couple of black books that are out there, and I think it was a news organization in the last year ran a very interesting piece about one of them, that this guy in New York City actually found it on the street and sold it on eBay, and a collector in Vermont purchased it. I think it was IBN News, or what the hell is the name of that news organization? It escapes me off the top of my head, but certainly the contacts are out there. And, speaking of the FBI, as far as I know, they never raided Zorro Ranch, which was Epstein's property in New Mexico, which is where the Clintons would primarily stay. They had a whole Western kind of town mock-up. They had a saloon vibe, like a Western saloon, and private bungalows. And there's some interesting articles out there that show those photographs and show what was going on at that place. But you don't hear so much about Zorro Ranch. So who knows, man? Maybe the King's safe has something on that. But again, Epstein died 3 years ago this week, and the FBI raids his New York mansion. They find diamonds, passports, CD-ROMs, all tapes, all that stuff. Where's all that stuff? Where's all the compromising material and all the video footage and pictures that they had of people on the island or in his New York residence, or in England or France or Florida? I mean, there's so much that they haven't released. But as is always the case, the media will focus on a couple of aspects of the story to kind of get people distracted and talking about it in a very narrow kind of way. Whereas the big picture stuff is kind of glossed over and, kind of back-nined or buried in page 7 or something like that. And you end up not seeing it, and it gets memory hold. General Meow Meow, let me take a sip of water. They wasted tax dollars to ship DC FBI to Florida. Wonder why Florida FBI or state agents couldn't handle it. DC FBI is most likely the most crooked. Yeah, probably. And again, about the warring factions, DeSantis probably wasn't tipped off. He's still, at this point, aligned with the king. He has his eyes set on 24, just like Trump does. So they're going to have to either battle that out or make some kind of deal. But DeSantis certainly came to Trump's defense after this, as did, several members of Congress that are still very loyal to Trump, and other people in the MAGA universe. But they're going to send the big dogs from DC, and it's going to kind of be, quote unquote, unannounced. So it was interesting to see that. And, there was a lot of pro-Trump people outside Mar-a-Lago with signs who were, calling BS on it. And I think ultimately it's probably going to be much ado about nothing. You're probably not going to see, much come of it. I don't know. They're saying, oh, Nixon's a choir boy compared to Trump, I am not a crook. General Meow Meow. Jesus, 3 years already. Time flies when you're being oppressed. Yeah, 3 years since Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Fire Pixie. Fire. You're always on fire. We love you, Fire Pixie. We're glad to see you here. Yeah, so that's Ryan. I got a little more information here on Bruce Reinhardt I wanted to read. Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent. So Reinhardt served as a federal prosecutor before going on to act as defense counsel for some employees of Epstein. And as far as I know, those employees included one or two of the pilots for Epstein's private jet. And I think Nadia Marcinkova and Sarah Kellen, who were, I think, both sex slaves and then brought into the fold with Ghislaine to recruit other girls. So it's horrible and sordid, because he would get these girls when they were minors and bring them into the fold and then kind of have them bring in other girls. So it's like victimizing them all over again, which Reinhardt also spent more than 11 years as an assistant U.S. attorney, but ceased to be a federal prosecutor on January 1st, 2008. The next day, Reinhardt began working as a defense attorney for certain Epstein employees. There you go. I wonder if he's close with Alan Dershowitz. Alan, I kept my pants on. Harvard, Dershowitz. Yep. So these employees included pilots and a scheduler named Sarah Kalin, and a woman. Some of Epstein's victims said what is a sex slave, according to a 2018 report in the Miami Herald. And the Miami Herald has done some great work on this case. Julie K. Brown, and they, but I mean, there's a ton of people who have kept this in the spotlight, and it's like Epstein's like the gift that keeps on giving, even 3 years in the grave. It's like amazing. It's crazy. The newspaper also reported in 2011 that Reinhardt was named in a lawsuit and was accused of violating Justice Department policy by representing the Epstein employees. He denied any wrongdoing and said he didn't participate in the criminal case against Epstein or learn any confidential information while working as a federal prosecutor. Reinhardt also previously donated to Democratic and Republican campaigns. In 2008, he gave Obama $1,000 and a further $1,000 to the Victory Fund. And in 2016, he gave low-energy Jeb Bush $500. So, two enemies, two of my enemies. Reinhardt gave him money, and now he's going into my safe. I mean, just disgusting stuff. Just disgusting. So it looks like the FBI removed dozens of boxes from Mar-a-Lago. And I think, some of that is, like we were talking about before, supposedly classified material that is, sensitive and shouldn't be out of the White House. But they could say it was just for that reason. It could have been another reason. So Trump said on Truth Social, "What took place yesterday and long before was an unprecedented infringement of the rights of every American citizen. Scam after scam, year after year. It's all the radical left Democrats really know, and it's their lifeblood, and they have no shame. Our country's paying a very big price." I mean, yeah, the king's right about a lot of that stuff that he posted on Truth Social about what precedent this sets and what it looks like for other Americans. I mean, if they can do this to a former president who's potentially looking to be president again, what can they do to any American or anyone in political office that they don't like or they perceive as an enemy? And, there's a lot of things Trump did that were very, very middle of the road and very much like any other president, but he also kind of did and said things that were completely outrageous and off the reservation. And they hate him for that. They definitely hate him for that. I mean, he's the member of their class that gets to go to the class reunions, and they got to sit there and listen to him, at the table, because in some cases he has more money than they do, but they view themselves as more prestigious and more blue blood and more entitled to their class. The king comes in there, he's a hot dog, he's got a couple of porn stars on his arm. I mean, he's having the time of his life, dude. He's got his WWF Intercontinental Championship wrestling belt, and he just lets out a big fart, So. And that's how he views. And I like that he openly mocks these politicians and has disdain for them. I really enjoyed that aspect of the Trump performance in 2016. But at this point going forward, he might have there might be too much stink on him, man, for them to want to, for the party to want to run him again. But I still think the American people support Trump. And I mean, just look at the rallies, the Save America rallies that he's doing. Whether the media covers it or not, thousands of people are still showing up to see the king work out his new hour. So I think he's still potent. I mean, twice impeached, survived Russiagate, beat crooked Hillary, survived the China Wuhan. So, I mean, I think write the king off at your own peril is kind of what I'm saying here. IB Denmark, hashtag we are Ryan Dawson. Yes, Ryan Dawson, Skyping in from a foxhole in the Gaza Strip. We love Ryan. We'll be doing we'll be collaborating again with Ryan soon. I think there's a Four Horsemen sometime this month. I don't think they've done the August one yet on Reed Coverdale's channel, Naturalist Capitalist. So hopefully they'll be announcing that. Comment from General Meow Meow. Well, they did Ruby Ridge, Waco, and Oklahoma City. I'm pretty sure a raid into anyone is par for the course. That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, that's. I watched a special on Ruby Ridge not that long ago, and that was it's just awful. I mean, it's all just awful, and they get they get people, fired up who have a certain ideology, and then they infiltrate that group, and then they try to spur more violence, and then something happens or pops off, and then they justify their budget for the next fiscal year. Rinse and repeat ad nauseum. Fire Pixie, thanks for being awesome. Thank you, Fire Pixie. We really appreciate your support. And I was just asked by Fire Pixie, push your Venmo. Yes, the best way to support us and our work is our Venmo, which is Senator Jackman 86. So any tips are appreciated. And of course, if you want to sign up to become a patron, it's patreon.com/Jackman Radio. And that's going to help us offset the cost of our studio and just being able to do this more. We love doing it. We have a freaking blast. We love you guys. We want to continue to, build up the audience. Fire Pixie, just a tip. That's what I said to Hillary, just a tip. Somehow Chelsea showed up. I think it's Webb Hubbles. It's not mine, it's Webb Hubbles. And yes, here's our Patreon. Patreon.com/Jackman Radio. I'm going to do it in Alex Jones's voice. Patreon.com/Jackman Radio. We need as many patrons as we can get, folks. We're being bankrupted by the Sandy Hook thing. It's just awful. But we have 30 patrons now, and we would love to. Sky's the limit. We'd love to have 1,000 patrons, but we're building it, incrementally and doing our thing. And yeah, and kind of to close things. Obviously, you guys know that I'm very big into music, and I'm a drummer, and I have a band called Northern Stone. And for any of our listeners who are in, Massachusetts or New Hampshire or New England who are interested in seeing some live music, my band's playing on Friday, August 19th at 8:30 p.m. at the Pasta Loft Restaurant in Milford, New Hampshire. That's going to be a great time. No cover charge. This is our second time playing there. And we do a lot of great covers, rock and roll from the 60s to today. We have a couple originals we might throw in there, and you'll see yours truly behind the drums. Definitely another passion of mine, and always love talking music and playing music. And the band, I might be a little biased, but my band's very talented. I have a very, very talented singer and guitarist, keyboard player. Everyone's very talented. Okay, they're great guys. Come say hi. Come have a pizza. We'll have Baron will be there serving drinks. Melania is going to be there sunbathing. It's going to be tremendous. It's going to be a really great time, and it's at the Pasta Loft in Milford, New Hampshire, on Friday, August 19th at 8:30 p.m. Yes, General Meow Meow. It's going to be huge. Well, all right, guys, that about does it for all the topics I wanted to hit. I really appreciate going back and forth. I love doing these live streams, answering questions and bouncing ideas off each other. You guys are the best. Appreciate the support. Make sure you like the channel, subscribe, share it, share our links. We are on Podbean. We're on Spotify, obviously here on YouTube. And we got some great guests coming up. I'll give you a tease. It looks like we are going to have the host of No Way Jose, Mr. Jose Galison, coming on Jackman Radio within the next week and a half. So that's going to be a fun discussion. He's always a lot of fun. And we will have a lot more updates on the studio, which we will be going in and doing a build-up starting in September with our friend Reed Coverdale of Naturalist Capitalist. So lots of cool things coming down the pipe. We really appreciate everyone's support, and we will see you soon.